You're 54 years old. You've worked for 30 years. You've done pretty well. You've got a house. You've got a 401k. Maybe there's $380,000 in there. Maybe $620,000. You're not broke, but you open your retirement account one night and you do that math. Okay, if I retire at 65 and I live until 90, that's 25 years. And suddenly your chest tightens. Because 25 years is a long time. And that number in your account, it doesn't feel big anymore. Here's the thing. Your 50s are the most financially dangerous decade of your life. Not your 20s, not your 30s, your 50s. Because this is the last stretch where your decisions actually change the outcome. After this, there's no time to recover. And most people in their 50s are making the exact mistakes that quietly destroy their retirement. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people sabotage their own retirement in the final decade before it matters. If you're someone who feels behind, unsure if you've saved enough, or secretly worried you've made some mistakes already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, this isn't about shame, it's about awareness. Because here's what most people don't realize. Your 50s aren't about earning more, they're about not screwing it up. Let's get into it. Mistake number 1, assuming you can catch up later. I hear this all the time. Tom, I'll just max everything out in my early 60s. I'll work a few extra years. I'll figure it out. Okay, let's actually do the math. Say you're 52 years old and you have $400,000 saved. If that money grows at 7% annually, which is reasonable for a balanced portfolio, by age 65 it becomes about $960,000. Not bad. But if you wait 5 years to get serious, and you start optimizing at 57 instead, that $400,000 only has 8 years to grow. At 7%, that becomes about $687,000. That 5-year delay costs you over $270,000. And that's before contributions. This is where it gets really interesting. The compounding curve is steepest at the end, which means the last decade before retirement is incredibly powerful. But it's also incredibly fragile. Psychologically, we delay because 65 feels far away. But at 52, it's 13 years. That's 1 middle school career. That's 2 presidential terms. That's nothing. Mistake number 2, taking on new debt in your 50s. Look, I get it. The kitchen's outdated, your friends are remodeling, you finally make good money. But here's what most people don't realize. Debt at 32 is inconvenient. Debt at 57 is dangerous. If you take out a $40,000 home equity loan at 8% over 10 years, you're paying about $485 a month. That's nearly $60,000 total with interest. Now imagine that same $485 invested monthly at 7% for 10 years. That becomes roughly $83,000. So the decision isn't just new kitchen or no kitchen. It's new kitchen versus $143,000 swing in your net worth. And here's the psychology behind it. In your 50s, you finally feel stable. So your brain says you deserve this. You do deserve comfort, but comfort funded by debt this late in the game, it steals future freedom. Now, you might be thinking, but Tom, I'll pay it off before retirement. Maybe. But life happens. Layoffs happen. Health issues happen. Parents need care. Your margin for error is thinner now. Mistake number 3, ignoring healthcare costs. This is the one people wildly underestimate. According to Fidelity's annual retiree healthcare estimate, the average 65-year-old couple retiring today will need roughly $315,000 for healthcare expenses in retirement. $315,000. That's not luxury care. That's premiums, out-of-pocket costs, prescriptions. And Medicare does not cover everything. Here's what most people don't realize. Healthcare inflation historically runs higher than general inflation. So if you're 52 today, that $315,000 number could easily be higher by the time you retire. If you're eligible for an HSA and you're not maxing it out, that's a mistake. In 2026, the family HSA contribution limit is over $8,000, including catch-up. That's triple tax advantaged money. Tax deductible going in. Tax-free growth. Tax-free withdrawals for medical expenses. There is no better deal in the tax code. And yet, most people treat it like a side account. Mistake number 4, keeping your portfolio too aggressive. Now this one's controversial. Because you've heard, stay aggressive, you need growth. Yes, but here's the thing. Sequence of returns risk is brutal. If you're 60 and the market drops 30% right when you retire, like in 2008, withdrawing money during that downturn can permanently damage your portfolio. Let's say you have $1 million. Market drops 30%. Now you have $700,000. You withdraw $50,000 for living expenses. Now you're at $650,000. Even if the market recovers 30% the next year, you don't get back to $1 million. You're climbing from a lower base. This is where it gets really interesting. Two retirees with the same average return can have wildly different outcomes depending on the order of returns. Your 50s are about building a glide path, not panic selling, not hiding in cash, but gradually reducing risk so one bad year doesn't wreck everything. Mistake number 5, not knowing your actual retirement number. When I ask people in their 50s, how much do you need to retire? Most answers are vague, around $1 million. 2 million, I think. Based on what? The 4% rule says you can withdraw about 4% of your portfolio annually adjusted for inflation. So if you want $80,000 per year from investments, you need about $2 million. Now you might be thinking, but I'll have Social Security. Yes. The average Social Security benefit is roughly $1,900 to $2,000 per month for retirees. That's about $24,000 a year. So if you need $80,000 total and Social Security covers $24,000, you need $56,000 from investments. At 4%, that means $1.4 million invested. See how this works? Without doing this math, you're guessing. And guessing at 28 is fine. Guessing at 58? Not fine. Mistake number 6. Claiming Social Security too early without understanding the trade-off. You can claim at 62. But your benefit is permanently reduced, roughly 25-30% lower than waiting until full retirement age. And if you wait until 70, it increases about 8% per year after full retirement age. Here's what most people don't realize. Delaying Social Security is like buying an inflation-adjusted annuity backed by the federal government. That's powerful. But psychologically, people claim early because they're afraid it'll run out, or because they want control, or because their friends did it. This is where it gets really interesting. The break-even point for delaying often lands in your late 70s or early 80s. And if you're healthy and have longevity in your family, delaying can dramatically increase lifetime income. But you have to run the numbers. Mistake number 7. Supporting adult children at the expense of your retirement. This one's emotional. Your kid needs help with rent, with a car, with student loans, and you think, I'll just delay retirement a bit. Look, there's a reason airlines tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. There are loans for college. There are no loans for retirement. If you're pulling $20,000 a year from retirement savings for 5 years to support an adult child, that's $100,000. But invested at 7% for 15 years. That's nearly $275,000. So the real cost isn't $100,000. It's almost $300,000. Helping is fine. Sacrificing your entire future? Not fine. And here's the psychology. Guilt is expensive. Love is powerful. But math doesn't care about emotion. Mistake number 8. Underestimating inflation. People in their 50s grew up in relatively stable inflation periods. So 3% feels small. But 3% compounded over 20 years? Price is nearly double. If you spent $70,000 today, in 20 years at 3% inflation, you'll need about $126,000 to maintain the same lifestyle. This is why $1 million isn't what it used to be. Your 50s are about inflation-proofing your income. That means assets that grow, not stuffing everything in cash because you're nervous. Cash feels safe, but long-term, it quietly loses purchasing power. Mistake number 9. Thinking downsizing automatically solves everything. I'll just sell the house. Okay, maybe you bought for $300,000 and now it's worth $700,000. Great, but where are you going? If you buy another house for $550,000, your net gain isn't that dramatic. And transaction costs, taxes, moving expenses eat into it. Downsizing can help, but it's not a magic retirement fund. And here's what most people don't realize. Your housing decision is emotional. It's tied to identity. You're not just selling square footage. You're selling memories, which means you might delay the decision too long or make it impulsively. Either way, in your 50s, housing should be strategic, not reactive. Mistake number 10, not stress testing your plan. Here's something almost no one does. They calculate retirement assuming everything goes perfectly. But what if the market underperforms? You live to 95, one spouse needs long-term care. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, about 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care. And nursing home costs can exceed $90,000 per year. One event like that can derail an otherwise solid plan. This is where it gets really interesting. The difference between people who retire confidently and those who panic isn't money. It's clarity. They've run scenarios. They know the risks, and they've made peace with trade-offs. Now, because awareness in your 50s is power, avoiding these mistakes isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. And trust me, you still have time, but not forever. All right, let's talk about the 2 mistakes that quietly wreck everything. These are the ones that don't feel dramatic. They don't show up as a big purchase. They don't look like a market crash. They're subtle, but they're deadly. Mistake number 11, believing your income will stay stable until you choose to retire. Here's the thing, most people imagine retirement as a voluntary decision. I'll work until 67, maybe 70, I'll decide. But according to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, nearly half of retirees leave the workforce earlier than planned, and not because they wanted to. Health problems, layoffs, caregiving responsibilities. This is where it gets really uncomfortable. Your 50s are peak earning years. You might be making $110,000, $140,000, maybe more than you've ever made. And your brain quietly assumes that income is permanent. But look, ageism in the workplace is real. Corporate restructuring is real. AI automation also real. If you lose a $130,000 salary at 59 and it takes 2 years to find comparable work, or you can't, that's not just lost income. That's potentially $260,000 in missed wages, plus missed retirement contributions, plus missed compounding. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, that won't happen to me. I hope it doesn't. But here's what most people don't realize. Planning for worst-case scenarios isn't pessimistic, it's protective. Let's run the math. If you're making $130,000 and saving 15%, that's $19,500 per year. Over 5 years, that's nearly $100,000 in contributions alone. At 7% growth over 15 years, that could become roughly $275,000. So losing 5 high-earning years can easily cost you $250,000 in retirement value. And that's conservative. So what do you do? 3 practical steps. Build a career shock absorber. In your 50s, you should have at least 12 months of expenses in liquid savings. Not 3, not 6, 12. Because job searches at this stage take longer. Eliminate fixed expenses aggressively. The lower your monthly burn rate, the less fragile your situation. Every $500 of monthly expense is $6,000 per year. Over 20 years of retirement, that's $120,000 you need to fund. Lowering expenses by $1,000 per month. That reduces your required retirement portfolio by roughly $300,000 using the 4% rule. This is where it gets really interesting. Flexibility is more powerful than return. Invest in relevance, skills, networking, consulting opportunities. Your human capital still matters in your 50s. Protect it, because income volatility is the risk nobody models. Now, mistake number 12. And this one is psychological. It's identity driven. It's subtle. It's expensive. Mistake number 12, avoiding the conversation. Avoiding the numbers, avoiding your spouse, avoiding the spreadsheet, avoiding reality. Look, I've seen this over and over. Couples who haven't sat down and actually talked about, what does retirement look like? How much do we really spend? What are we afraid of? One spouse assumes they'll travel. The other wants to downsize. One assumes $80,000 a year is enough. The other is secretly thinking $120,000. And nobody has actually run the numbers. Here's what most people don't realize. Financial conflict in your 50s isn't about money. It's about fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing identity, fear of slowing down, fear of aging. So instead of confronting it, people avoid it. But math doesn't disappear because you don't look at it. Let me tell you a quick story. I spoke with a couple, mid-50s, dual income, about $900,000 saved. They felt behind, stressed constantly, avoided logging into their accounts. When we actually mapped it out, between Social Security, a modest pension, and their investments, assuming 6% growth and a 4% withdrawal rate, they were on track for about $95,000 per year in retirement income. They only needed $82,000. They were fine. But the stress was real because clarity was missing. This is where it gets really interesting. Uncertainty is more stressful than bad news. When you finally calculate your number, one of two things happens. You're ahead and you relax, or you're behind and you adjust. Both are better than drifting. Now, let's zoom out, because I want to challenge something fundamental. Most financial advice for your 50s focuses on more. Save more, earn more, invest more. And yes, that matters. But the real shift in your 50s isn't about accumulation. It's about alignment. Aligning spending with values, risk with timeline, work with energy, lifestyle with math. Here's an analogy. Think of your financial life like an airplane landing. In your 20s and 30s, you're taking off. In your 40s, you're cruising. In your 50s, you're descending. And if you descend too fast, you crash. If you descend too slow, you overshoot the runway. This decade is about calibration, not panic, not coasting. Calibration. Now let's tie everything together. The 12 mistakes, waiting to catch up later, taking on new debt, ignoring healthcare costs, staying too aggressive without managing risk, not knowing your real retirement number, claiming Social Security without strategy, funding adult children at your own expense, underestimating inflation, assuming downsizing is a silver bullet, not stress testing your plan, assuming income stability, avoiding the conversation. If you fix even 3 of these, your trajectory changes dramatically. Let's do one final piece of math. Say you increase savings by $1,000 per month for 10 years at 7% growth. That becomes roughly $173,000. Delay Social Security and increase lifetime benefits by $8,000 per year. Over 20 years, that's $160,000 more income. Cut $800 per month in unnecessary expenses before retirement. That reduces required portfolio size by about $240,000. Combined impact? Over $500,000 in lifetime financial difference. That's not from some secret stock pick. That's from avoiding mistakes. This is why your 50s matter so much. Don't spiral. Instead, pick one thing. Log into your accounts. Calculate your retirement number. Schedule a conversation with your spouse. Increase your contribution by 1%. Open an HSA. Build your 12-month emergency fund. Action reduces fear. Avoidance increases it. And look, you're not behind because you made mistakes. You're behind if you refuse to adjust. Your 50s are not the end of the story. They're the editing phase. And edits are powerful. If this video made you think differently about your retirement, hit that like button so more people in their 50s see this. And if you want more breakdowns like this, real math, real psychology, no fluff, make sure you subscribe, because here's the truth. Retirement isn't about having millions. It's about having options. And options come from decisions you make today. You still have time. Use it wisely. I'll see you in the next one.